24/7 gaming, over a dozen restaurants and lounges, luxury rooms, and more. Details at northernquest.com. By Zappos, the home for the Cougar Coaches Show. And by The Bookie. It's all here. It's all you. It's all WSU. Live from Zappos, alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach, here's the voice of the Cougars, Matt Chazanow.
We are live here at Zappos. It's that time of the week. It's a packed house once again. Great to see everybody. And it's the Cougs 1-0, a 58-7 W over New Mexico State. How about that? Anthony Gordon, one incompletion. How dare he in the first half? 22 of 23. Had he been 23 of 23, it would have tied the Pac-12 record for consecutive completions set by Aaron Rodgers. And he almost broke the Cougar record, which was Luke Falk. He did it 21 consecutive. The national record was done by an East Carolina quarterback, 26 in a row, just so you know, is that record. Cougars win it 58-7. We'll have Coach Leach here momentarily. He is coming off the practice field with the guys. Thursday Night Football is underway, and now it's Northern Colorado. That's a big Sky school, Northern Colorado on film. Looks like they have their act together. They were hanging in there with a Mountain West school, San Jose State. But the story really of game one, everybody wanted to know, what's Anthony Gordon going to do? He's going to throw for 5 touchdown passes and no interceptions. How about that? So Gordon looked really, really good. We are taking, absolutely. We're taking your questions here in the restaurant. If you want to write in some questions for Coach, we'll try to get those on the air. Also on Twitter, M_Chaz. You can call in 866-268-4825, 866-COUG-TALK if you're spelling it out. And we're going to revisit some of the highlights. 58-7 the win. We'll listen to that, take a break, and come back with Coach live here at Zappos.
Cougs, Aggies.
Beautiful setting for college football, one of the most beautiful settings in all the country, the rolling hills of the Palouse. And a sunset about to dip down. Snapback coming to Gordon in the shotgun with Borghi to his left. Pumps once, goes deep, perfect spiral, has Fisher. It is complete, touchdown. Anthony Gordon goes deep to Rod Fisher. Redshirt freshman's first start and first touchdown. And it's 6-0 Cougs. To Gordon with Borghi to his right. Pumps it, throws it over the middle, complete. Des Patman off to the races, farts out of the field 20. It's a foot race to the 10 and he wins it. Touchdown, 48 yards. Second big hitter by Anthony Gordon, who is 7 for 7, north of 100 yards. Second and goal from the 19 now. Gordon steps up, tosses it over the middle, complete. Winston has a 5-yard line, dives forward, touchdown. 19-yard hookup. Gordon is still perfect. He's 14 for 14 for north of 200 yards.
Did a really good job as far as the first start. Was calm and collected from the beginning. That allowed us to put our best foot forward, just his demeanor in the huddle, and he was extremely sharp starting out this game and continued to be, I thought.
Came in real confident, trust our preparation, Coach Leach, we harp on our repetition and, being perfect at the certain plays that we run, and I think tonight was a perfect example of it. Came out, we executed from the start, and it was awesome to see.
Gordon in the shotgun at the 46, claps for the ball, tosses it deep, wide open. Travell Harris makes the grab, one man to beat 20, off to the races, 10, touchdown, 54 yards. Gordon's done it again. He's 15 for 15 for 4 touchdowns, and the Cougars are up 27-7 with 9:55 to play in the first. 3rd and 1 now from the 12. Snap back to Gordon, handoff to Borghi, right on cue for Brink's call. It's a 12-yard touchdown. Slings it out left for Harris, using a couple of blockers. Now cuts it back right at the 15, curling around to the wide side of the field. White has a 10, has a line of the end zone. Travell Harris goes the entire width of the field to score.
The yards after catch today, threw a little 10-yard slant to Dez. He takes it for 60 yards. Travell takes a little arc route, takes it all the way back across field. It's awesome. It's real comforting knowing if I get the ball out of my hands quick, it's in good hands with these playmakers outside, so it's awesome.
Ubru takes the snap, has time in a wide open pocket, pumps a couple of times, rolls left, tosses it deep, touchdown. Renard Bell sneaks behind the Aggie defense, and Gage Gubrud has his first passing touchdown as a Cougar. Hammer time here on the Palouse, 58-7. The Cougs blast New Mexico State, and Anthony Gordon makes a statement in his first start as a Cougar QB.
More from Zappos after this on the Washington State Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
Live at Zeppo's. It is the Coaches Show with Coach Leach. Great to be here hanging with everybody. Got a ton of questions here for Coach. Now, Coach is en route, I am told, so he'll be here in any moment. Actually, tomorrow night up in Spokane at the Davenport Hotel is the Hall of Fame induction for over a handful of Cougs, including Rod Commons, who was in the administration here for a long time, and Rod's a great guy and still does a lot with the Cougs and is taking a lot of pictures on the sidelines. Ryan Leaf will be inducted. Josephat Capcorey will be inducted. And so there are some great all-timers who are being inducted into the Hall of Fame. That's a 5 o'clock cocktail hour, and it's a 6 o'clock start for that up at the Davenport in Spokane. And it's a great event, and it's going to be great to see everybody. And we've got some Cougs coming in here trying to find a spot, trying to find some tables. Easier said than done, as Coach Leach is en route. So the Cougs take on Northern Colorado, and this is a well-timed game, I think, by a lot of folks' opinions here. 2 o'clock kick, so we'll be on live with Derek and Jed at noon at that new stage on Rogers Field, which, by the way, if you haven't seen the new Coors Light Cougar tailgate setup, it's super fun. It's this huge stage. There's a big TV and huge speakers and lights, and it looks really crisp. And Derek and Jen will be there 90 minutes. We'll be up in the booth for, a 1:30. We'll be up in the booth for the 2 o'clock kick against the Northern Colorado Bears. We've got some questions coming in on Twitter as well, and a whole stack over here. Northern Colorado, I had alluded to it. They kind of hung around with San Jose State. It was a pretty close game in San Jose. 35-18 was the final, so the Northern Colorado Bears are 0-1. They had a hard time last year. They had a pretty good season a couple of years ago, and I did not know this until I dove into the prep a little bit, but you may recall really good wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Bucks, Vincent Jackson, was actually a Northern Colorado Bear. He's probably their most prominent NFL player, and he just came out of there. He was 2001 to 2004, he was really good in the NFL for a long time. They're coached by Ernest Collins Jr., and Ernest Collins Jr., Coach Collins, is in his 9th year, and they're in Greeley, Colorado, with an enrollment of about 12,000, and their colors are blue and gold. Their defensive coordinator is Marty English. It's his 2nd year. They have had a lot of staff turnover. They have 5 new coaches this year to Northern Colorado. That's about half the staff. And again, this is a Big Sky school, so they're going to play Idaho. They're going to play, depending on the year, now Idaho in the Big Sky, but they'll play Portland State and Eastern Washington, and those schools out of the Big Sky Conference will Northern Colorado from Greeley. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. Coach is actually, I'm getting a text. Coach is a little bit behind. He's going to come in here in just a moment. Let's burn another break here. We'll come right back. We're live here at Zeppo's. Coach Leach is en route here from Zeppo's on the Coaches Show.
and all across the country since 1863. That's U.S. Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC.
We're back here live at Zeppo's. It is the Coaches Show. Coaches right around the corner. We are loaded up with questions and anticipate his arrival in just a moment. 7 receptions, 103 yards, and a touchdown for Des Patman, who played a fantastic game against the Aggies. How about Max Borghi's 128 yards rushing was the first? Yeah, how about Max? Had a heck of a game. Had a really good game. 128 yards. He only had 10 carries. His 58-yarder was his career long. And it was the first 100-yard rusher since Gerard Wicks in 2016. How about that? So it's been a little while since I wouldn't have thought that off the top of my head. I would have thought James had one in the big game against Oregon with the 6 rushing touchdowns. We can go through a lot of recent wins over the Ducks if you'd like to while we're here. There are a lot to go over. We could do that, or Stanford for that. We could keep rolling through the league, actually, if we chose to do that. So Max had a great game with his 128 yards. And then Brandon Arconato, who a lot of fans may not have known as well. I think Arconato could have a really big year. He kind of plays that Kyle Sweet spot of the air raid this year. And Brandon had 6 receptions for 66 yards. And then Tay Martin and Aesop Winston played great. Tay, 5 receptions for 57 yards. Aesop had 5 for 51 and a touchdown. And then Travell Harris had 2 touchdowns. Now, Travell had one last year. This is his first multi-touchdown receiving game, and Travell played really well. He almost had 100 yards receiving. He had the big, long one, and then he had the one that took about 85 yards but was more horizontal than it was vertical. And he went the whole width of the field there. He went 20 yards all said and done officially, but 4 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cassidy Woods is a name that is brand new to everybody. Cassidy has played really well in fall camp. He's huge for that inside receiver spot, 6'4", 225 from Texas. And Cassidy had his first receptions last week as a Coug, 4 catches for 40 yards. And then Rod Fisher off the top right away had that start, his first start. He had 3 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. Rod had the 41-yard touchdown to start. He's a burner. He can really fly. I've been told he's a top 3 speedster on the team. He's one of the fastest Cougs. And then Brandon Gray, who had not played at all, had 2 receptions for 13 yards, and Borghi had a couple. And so did and then Renard Bell, who we all joke kind of behind the scenes, although now we talk about it on the air. You know, Renard Bell last year caught 20 passes, and 5 of them were for touchdowns. So he's 5'8", 162, and he's like a goal line back. He's the smallest guy out there. And this year he has 1 catch for 1 touchdown, and that's Renard Bell's statistic line. And here's Coach Leach coming here to Zeppo's after the 58-7 win over the Aggies. For the world's most refreshing beer, 21 means 21. Celebrate responsibly with Coors Light, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. So we are here at Zeppo's live packed house and throwing the headset on Coach here in just a moment. Coach, how are the guys bouncing around there today? How's practice out there?
We had a good practice today. I thought polished some things up. Had a good Thursday night football, so that part was good, and just have to get a week better.
Did you expect I know that you had high hopes and high expectations for Anthony Gordon. Did you expect 22 of 23 in the first half and you know, as high as hopes probably were?
I thought that he would play well. I thought from the beginning he'd play well, and which he did. And then I didn't have expectation on numbers or whatever, although I did expect the 22nd ball to get caught. But I thought he played well. It's a good debut. A lot of times people go in there with some stage fright and anxiety, and he really didn't. And came out swinging early and was playing well when we took him out.
I'm going to go through some questions here, some write-ins here from the folks at Zeppo's. This one's anonymous. What was the best play of the game last week?
Oh, shoot, I don't know. Maybe that post to Roderick Fisher, which kind of opened things up.
Do you ever feel like sometimes when you watch film, some of your favorite plays don't have statistics tied to them? Is it an offensive line blocking sometimes? You know, is it something Liam Ryan may have done or Abe Lucas or maybe something on special teams, big block on special teams that you thought was really good. That really kind of fires you up in the film room.
Well, I thought when we kept him out on that goal line stand, that was a huge play. That was huge for our defense, and it was against a good offense. They had a great running back and a couple good receivers, and they had a quarterback that could play, I think, at all but 2 teams in this conference. Right now, I think that guy'd be the starter.
Yeah, how about that? Alex Brink was really complimentary of him after that first series. He thought he was really good also. Ron Wilson just handed a question here. Thursday Night Football tonight. Which player on offense and defense stood out? Who played well tonight Thursday Night Football?
Let's see. On offense, it was there were a bunch of them on defense. On offense, it was Gunnar Cruz and Mitch Quinn. And Cade Beresford did some good things. And I thought the defense's defensive front, I'm not sure who they mentioned, played well. I thought it might have been Armani Archie, but I thought their front kept constant pressure. Their DBs would get some last-minute tips. It was a pretty good scrimmage from the standpoint. Both sides had plenty to be happy about and plenty to be pissed about. So typically that's a good scrimmage. So I thought it was competitive from start to finish, and so it was good work and helps us get those young guys better for sure.
Armani Archie's a really athletic-looking DB, a young DB here for the Cougs. You mentioned the goal line stand included the strip by Tyrese Ross, the backup safety here for the Cougs. Defensively, what'd you like? I know 58-7 was the score, but what'd you see defensively that you liked?
Ross is hit. He both hit, stripped. Who jumped on the ball?
Chad Davis, I think, was
Chad Davis, only because Ross couldn't get there before, but good job by Chad Davis, too.
Yeah, both those guys. I'm out for the whole game. Was there anything that you thought, aside from that play, that was really good, that the Cougs did really well against the Aggies?
Really just from one play to the next. Played well from one play to the next. I didn't think we had serious lapses. I thought defensively, I thought we adjusted well to their tempo. Their tempo was really fast, and they threw underneath, but I thought we adjusted and outlasted that. And I thought the other thing, as a team, we got better as the game went on, which you want to see that too.
All right, we're going to take it off the football field a little bit and just kind of rifle through these rapid fire. I haven't had a ton of time to organize these at all, so they're sort of all over the place. I didn't notice this. I wouldn't notice this up in the booth. Did you notice? And I don't know if this is a joke or not. There were a bunch of praying mantises in Martin Stadium on the field area, or maybe in the stands or something.
No, I don't notice those as much. The wasps. We go through a season where there was a bunch of wasps.
Okay. What personality trait has gotten you in the most trouble?
Honesty.
Yeah, okay.
They want you to break part of the 10 Commandments, no matter what happens.
If you could time travel, what time period would you travel to and why?
Oh, geez, that's tough. There's too many to really mention. I think that, it would be tempting. The most tempting, of course, would be the past, where you've read about or something like that, the Old West, pirate stuff or like, Revolutionary War, all those things. But, the one thing that you can't read about would be something like the future that goes beyond how long you're going to live, I suppose. It's like Paul Harvey says, tomorrow's always better than today.
Thank you for that question. Okay, Bryson, age 6. Coach Leach, what's your favorite movie? Do you have a favorite movie?
Rio Bravo.
Okay, all right, Rio Bravo. What's your favorite football team besides the Cougars? I don't know if you have a favorite pro team that you follow or
pro teams. I tend to follow them based on what I like about their offense, and if I know the coaches, that type of thing.
Sure.
Guys that throw the ball a lot. When I was his age, my favorite team was the Green Bay Packers, and my favorite player was Bart Starr.
There you go. They're playing right now. Actually, the Packers are playing the Bears. This is a question from a gentleman here who's in a bit of a conundrum. His daughter's getting married in 2.5 weeks to a Patriots fan. How does he stop this?
Shoot, have her go spindle. Have her, and I say this with all due respect, and our meetings would be probably quite similar. Have her go spend an entire week through Coach Belichick and his staff's meetings and realize the grind that is, and then it's not as warm and fuzzy perhaps as it appears from the outside when you hoist up a Super Bowl trophy.
How much do you know about, and I'm sure you're closer with some coaches rather than others, Coach Belichick, I know some other but how much do you know about the inner workings of pro teams? You know, obviously you've got to have a sense of what the Cardinals are doing with Cliff Kingsbury and how you know Coach Kingsbury, but how much do you know kind of what it's like day to day, week to week in the pro level and the way other coaches do it?
I know in general, and it varies on the coach and it varies on the organization. There's a lot of variety to it. You know, it's not as centralized as college is. It's a deal where the tighter that the owner, the head coach, and the general manager operate, the more efficient it is. And those that do it that way are in the playoffs pretty much every year. It's surprising everybody doesn't do it that way, but most don't. You know, you work with less numbers, so you can be precise about who you plug in where. You know, there's a lot of positives to each one, but there's a little more of a negotiation, perhaps, I suppose, with the NFL.
How did you figure out, and how long did you evolve your method of practice? Going to be the same, and you know the way it has taken shape. Maybe that's going back to Valdosta State. But how long did you kind of carve into shape that statue that is the way you have the whole program organized with the defense, the offense, special teams doing everything, and then watching film and timing and everything? How long did it take you to get a sense of, okay, this is how you want to do it. This is your system.
Well, it's still evolving. It's still evolving. You're constantly trying to get better and improve, and then so it never really quits evolving, and you try to learn something, pick something up. It's a little more subtle now because through trial and error, a lot of things have come to bear over the years where you can duplicate most of it, you know. So yeah, you can, you know, we're in a position now where we can duplicate a lot of it, but we try to learn, pick something up, and be more efficient all the time, whether it's with calls or game planning or just organizing something.
When do you think you made some of your biggest shifts? Was it like at Kentucky or Oklahoma, or was it maybe in Lubbock? You know, year 1 to 2 in Lubbock, you say, "Whoa, I need to change that," or do you feel like it was sort of all pretty much in place and it's just minutia and nuances that you switch up a little bit here and there?
I would say it varied. I would say Valdosta State was huge, as we kind of really shaped a lot of what we did at Iowa Wesleyan. And then I think that early on at Texas Tech was huge, as you know, putting the thing together. And, of course, I was head coach at that point.
For sure. All right, we're going to take a break. We're up against it. We're taking it here with Coach Leach. We'll take your questions, and we'll get some on Twitter as well. We are live here at Zeppo's. It's the Coaches Show with Coach Leach.
822-684825. Live from Zeppo's alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach. Here's Matt Chazanow.
Back here live at Zeppo's, it's the Coaches Show with Coach Leach getting set for Northern Colorado. It's the Cougs and the Bears coming up. A lot of interesting games this week in the Pac-12. It's week number 2. Arizona played that week 0, so we'll sort of shelve that. So it's week number 2, and there are 2 league games, and 2 pretty big league games. Cal is in Seattle. They play the Huskies. And Stanford plays USC, and the word is on the old Twitter machine that KJ Costello may not play. There was a targeting, and no targeting was called. I don't know if you've ever dealt with that, Coach, before, with targeting that went uncalled. But Costello will be out for that one, and it'll be Stanford, USC, and Cal, Washington. Kind of early league games. I don't know that you've played a league game that early in quite a while. I would imagine that's not the preference, right? I would think you'd want the league schedule backed up later. What do you think? Does it matter to you?
Yeah, I don't recall if we have or we haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall. A lot of these guys will play 2 or 3, then play a league game, and then play somebody late like they do in the SEC.
Right. Arizona State plays Sacramento State tomorrow night. All right, back to the questions here. Natalia asks, why did you join the Cougs?
I joined the Cougs because I had a lot of respect for the Pac-12 Conference. They have a great tradition here at Washington State. I like the part of the country. I like the fact it was a college town, despite the fact most of the conference is an urban conference. And they have a tradition of throwing the ball. So, one of the big things was they had an aggressive administration that was very committed to improving, and with Dr. Floyd and Bill Moose at the time, and I'm proud to say we've got a great one now that's great to work with. It's been fantastic, and so I think that that's because a lot of schools don't enjoy something like that back to back, and they'll make some progress, then they'll lose some ground, make some progress. But, we've got a lot of energy pulling the right direction, and momentum has continued to grow.
Love to hear that. Thank you for that question, Natalia. We are here at Zeppo's, and I know you spend Thanksgiving here. We spend it together for at least an hour or so before the team does whatever they do for Thanksgiving, but a lot of that is here. And Samantha, age 4, asks if you have a favorite food here at Zeppo's, and I wonder if that ties into the 700 pounds of mashed potatoes that the offensive line eats on Thanksgiving.
The turkey, they have really moist turkey here, and it's really good, and I recommend everybody have Thanksgiving dinner here. As good as all your relatives cook, make sure you eat Thanksgiving at Zeppo's.
It is good. It is really good. Okay, let's go to Twitter real quick for some questions. Cody, who may have gotten into your class, Insurgent Warfare. Without going into detail, Cody Jewell asks, do you have any intention of using any of those plays that were submitted to you in class this year? And without, he doesn't want to give any state secrets away here. But
we've got some of them on file, and some of them were well thought out and good. And I'm not saying that carbon copy of it, but it did spawn some ideas, and we do have it in a file. And I'm glad you asked that question, because it's getting to be about that time where we need to go back and revisit it. We've got our basic stuff in, and now we got a little bit of room to expand.
I would imagine you got some that you kind of appreciate the effort but couldn't use them, but some of them probably were pretty bright. I bet you, right?
These guys were really smart students, almost without exception, kind of high GPA guys, and did real well on their essay that they submitted, and so we really did kind of get, because of the interest in the class, without really a bunch of time or promotion, we did kind of get the some top line people that you'd talk to them. Somebody's a graduate student, or somebody's straight A's in this, and he's going to go do something brilliant that I don't understand, and then there were a lot of guys like that, so it was an impressive group.
Team Conquer Lime on Twitter, he says a lot of your QBs, you have a vast coaching tree with lots of limbs. Oklahoma versus Houston this past week, case in point, with those two head coaches. And actually we'll see Dana Holgorsen in just less than 2 weeks now. You've had a lot of QBs, former players on your staff. You still do right now, Darcel McBath, Dave Nickel. What's that like? What's that process like, having former players get on your staff? And have you ever talked to any Cougs about it? He wants to know if you're going to have any Cougs on staff, and how does that work?
Well, I got to be here long enough to get some Cougs to graduate and a little experience and stuff like that. But, yeah, I'm sure we will. I don't think there's any question that, the next generation is going to be an awful lot of Cougs. And I think that and it's starting to stretch back now. Of course, Dana went clear back to Iowa Wesleyan, and then Mason Miller is with us. He goes clear back to Valdosta State, and so I'm sure that'll happen. It's good, it's great to see these guys achieve really good things. Generally, they're a lot like they were towards the end of their career, just kind of sharp, directed people. Once in a while, you'll have somebody. I won't name any names, but I got a guy who's actually in the NFL. He was wilder than hell as a player, like crazy wild. And, of course, now he's with the NFL doing a heck of a job. And just a really good football mind, very smart, and was always very driven by football. So, but even with that, though, you could see it in him even then, because he was so passionate about football, and very competitive. The one thing that they all have in common, they're incredibly competitive people.
Do you prefer, or prefer might be the wrong word, but do you like hiring players that you had because they already know, first of all, they certainly know your system, they played in it, but they know practice routine, expectations, culture? There's got to be a baked-in advantage there, right?
Yeah, it mitigates the learning curve.
Of all the questions that we get from all kinds, the one that comes up most often is dating advice, I'd say.
Yeah.
And Jake Callahar wants some ideas for a first date in Pullman. And I swear we get dating advice every week from somebody who wants some dating. We had marriage advice, but I think he wants to know some first dating advice in Pullman.
Well, the biggest thing is don't be afraid of them. I mean, don't be afraid. There's an inclination to, some girls real attractive, so you're inclined to be afraid of them, and there's no sense in that, because she's not perfect either. If you don't believe me, ask her parents what it's like when she gets ready in the morning or something like that. And so that picture will clarify quite quickly. And then you want to have a setting or an environment, where there's some dialogue, where you can talk. Everybody thinks movie's the first one. No, movie may be part of the first one, but there needs to be somewhere where you can get to know them, whether, they make it's a little bit like a draft. You figure out whether they make the cut or not, keep, cut, practice squad, And the other thing, if you can get some good dialogue and conversation, one of the quickest ways to do that is you got to make sure that they're relaxed as well. And so make them eat. If they're just eating a salad, I mean, you're not making the progress you'd like. They have to be in a position where they're eating real food, and because they eat real food. And so if they won't eat real food in front of you, you know that they haven't relaxed enough that you're going to get any quality dialogue. And so you have to get to that point. And then a number of people that I dated, then we became really good friends as a result, even though when dating material, became really good friends. And then you talked on the phone, and you could get the female point of view on stuff, which, believe me, is different. And then that's you need a dialogue. You need to talk. You need to get to know one another. And I think that's important. And the best dates a lot of times are the ones where you're not doing anything and you just find your ways, or you find yourselves hanging out with one another. And if before you know it, you wandered around campus or went here, went there, and just spent the better part of the day together, then she's probably a pretty good person to hang out with.
There you go. Jake, thank you very much for that question. We are up against it. We'll take a break. Come back here live at Zeppo's. We're talking to Coach.
Preview Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer.
Back here live at Zeppo's, it is the Coaches Show with Coach Leach. It's the Cougs against Northern Colorado, and it's that part of the show where we go into the opponent a little bit. Northern Colorado 0-1 after a loss at San Jose State, but on film, they look like they have their act together. They really do. They look like a well-coached, sort of very structured Big Sky program, didn't they?
Yeah, I thought, it was a closer game, I think, than the score. And the score was pretty close, most of it.
It was.
And, they're big. The biggest thing you notice is how big they are. They're one after the next. They're big people. The quarterback's a highly touted guy, and apparently he's letting it rip now. And they've got some nice little skill players and stuff like that that we got to keep an eye on. And as much as we do focus on the opponent, which is really what we think lines up well against them, I mean, if you're going to be any good, the bulk of your focus needs to be on yourself and what you can do as far as improving and getting better, that's how it is. But, I thought that, going on the road the very first game, that's always tough. And then I'm sure that they've improved. And I also think that, they got, some of the first game stuff under their belt. And so I expect them to be a better team than we saw on film. But they are a big physical team.
Yeah, their left guard, Kevin Williams, is 328 pounds. Their left tackle, Kyle Ergenbright, is 300 pounds. Jacob Knipp is that quarterback you were referencing. He's a sixth-year guy. He's been there a really long time. They think very highly of him. They think he's one of the league's best quarterbacks. He's been one of their Big Sky's top QBs. Looks the part. Kind of looks like Alex Brink, actually. He's got those long arms.
Yeah, he's a hell of a lot bigger than our quarterback.
He's big. He's 6'4", 213. And then their top wide receiver is a big guy, too, 6'2", 204, but he's pretty darn good. He led the team last year in 20 yards per catch last year. He's pretty good. When you see them defensively, you mentioned some of the size. Their nose tackle's 280. Their defensive tackle 295. They really are a pretty big team.
Yeah, they're bigger. Their defensive front's bigger than ours. I feel like ours runs better, though.
A little bit faster. You mentioned over the years when we've talked about playing Big Sky schools, the difference in a Big Sky school week 1 versus week 10 when you get deeper down there that's where it starts to get different. Big Sky schools week 1, week 2 can play with anybody, can't they?
The first level's quite similar. The depth isn't, but the first level's quite similar. Some are guys that were overlooked that developed. Others are guys that not necessarily, some cases baggage, not necessarily baggage, but, for one reason or another, transferred or something like that, or get on the field sooner. And, some of these guys that want to get on the field sooner are behind great players. And so then whether they're better than the guy that they was ahead of them, that doesn't change the fact that in a lot of cases they're really good. So, and I don't think it's an accident the SEC waits until, week 7 and 8 to play these guys.
Yeah, they generally have that. They only play 8 league games, so they filter in that one game pretty darn late there. So Northern Colorado, pretty good size, and then and they played on the road last week. But I didn't know Vincent Jackson off my head, that great NFL wide receiver. He played for the Buccaneers for a long time. He was a Northern Colorado Bear. And I'd mentioned that kind of off the top. He was a really good player, all-pro level wide receiver. He was a good one.
Well, they've had a great winning tradition. Before they moved up, they've won a number of national championships. And, Greeley's a tough place, and there's tough people there. So
they won 2 D2 national titles with the head coach who became the head coach at Wyoming not too long after that. In the late 90s, they won 2 D2 national titles, and then they moved up to D1 to play in the Big Sky, and they have had some good years.
And they were in the money prior to they didn't always win the whole thing, but they were, went a long ways.
And there's a little look there at Northern Colorado. Have you found over the years, because the Rod Fisher pass right away, you mentioned that deep ball, and Anthony Gordon threw a bunch of deep balls. For you, it must be kind of interesting. It's all the air raid, but it's the way the skill sets in the scheme of the defense circumstantially. There are different ways to run the air raid. There's not just one way to do it, and I'd imagine some QB's skill sets fit into one way more so than opposed to another, right? Some guys have bigger arms, some guys are more accurate.
Well, you try to play to the guy's strengths mixed with the receivers, and and then you try to stretch the whole field. But some routes are better for some guys than others, and some guys are just better. There's a play that Gordon's just good at that I'm inclined to call just because he's good at. And, it doesn't necessarily line up good. He's just really good at it. And then, he's happy when I call it. And, it'll look like a horrible situation to run it in, and he'll make it work anyway, And so there's some of that, too, which it's intangible, and there's probably some reason. But some things your guys are just good at. And then Arcanado and some of our H's and Y's have gotten real good at it too.
How long before you think he'll become as comfortable as you'd like him to be to check down to a run, or maybe change a play that you call to him and take command of it, where you trust him and feel like he's got the right sense of when to make a change at the line?
He did a real good job of that this last game, I would say, as far as a debut. He did as good as anybody I've had. That's always a work in progress, but he's done a good job with that so far. And, part of it is he's, he's sort of a calm, clear-minded guy. He's a very confident guy. And while being competitive, he's still relaxed, and I think that's beneficial to our huddle. And then, he doesn't, or hasn't, at least up to this point, gone through those frantic periods, where he's trying to sort something out,
Would he be described accurately as a cool customer, just kind of calm and cool in demeanor, or is that not the case?
Yeah, it is, and as we've ratcheted that up a few notches, and he got better and better.
22 of 23 in the first half, 420 yards. How do you think Gage Gubrud looked at 9 of 10 or 9 of 11 passing through a touchdown?
I thought he looked pretty good. I thought really both of those guys looked pretty good. I thought that you know, and it's tough to just come off the bench. You know, there's times you'll miss some reads and stuff, but he was good at creating stuff. And then I thought Tinsley did a good job. We dropped 2 balls, and you know, otherwise I thought we would have put that in. And so, you know, I think that I've said this. I think those 2 guys could play on other teams here too, you know.
What is it about Renard Bell that he catches such a high percentage of balls for touchdowns? He 1 catch this year, 1 touchdown last year, 5 touchdowns, 20 receptions. He just has a knack. It's amazing. He has a knack for the end zone. Or is that the way you call it? Is that circumstance? Is that Renard? What is that?
Part of it must be Renard, because he is kind of lucky that way. He's good at finding space. He's kind of an elusive, shifty guy. And he does find the end zone.
It's amazing. He has this remarkably high percentage of catches for touchdowns. How did Max look to you, Max Borghi?
I thought he looked good. I thought he looked like actually, I thought he looked better than he did last year. You know, I mean, I was going to say he looked like he did late season. He might be a tiny bit better than that right now. We'll see.
128 yards rushing. He had that career-long, nearly 60-yarder, and no catches for Calvin Jackson. I suspect he gets in the mix here. Maybe, if not this week, sooner rather than later. He's a good ball player.
Yeah, he might. He's a really good player.
We're going to take our final break, come back here for the home stretch. We're live here with Coach at Zeppo's. We got a few more questions we'll get in. We'll wrap it up. We're live here at Zeppo's before Northern Colorado this Saturday.
Coaches Show. Give us a call on the bookie call-in line at 866-COOG-TALK. That's 1-866-268-4825. Now, back to the show.
Back here live at Zeppo as we're talking football with Coach Leach. It is our final segment. Great to see everybody for a 2 o'clock kick against Northern Colorado coming up on Saturday. We've got a few more questions here. I can dig them out here. All right, Zach wants to know, Coach, are you tired of TV crews following you on your walk to work yet?
And well, it's funny because a whole lot of them want to do it, and then they act like it's an original idea. And then Chantel Jennings was the first one to come up with it, and had plotted it for a while. And then there's been several others film it, and I've kind of lost track how many. But we've had quite a few. I don't mind the company, to be honest with you. I mean, on one hand, you've got company and people to talk to, and then on the other hand, don't get a lot of phone calls done though. And then on the other hand, watching those cameramen. Those cameramen take a beating because for those in here that don't know, Pullman's a very hilly place, and as they're going downhill backwards, trying to film you walking downhill, that thing's just beating their face up each step they take. That big old camera, and you want to see somebody have tough, watch some of these cameramen racing around to film the thing.
Did you know that the Houston Cougars were named after the Washington State Cougars? I didn't realize that until somebody on Twitter informed me of it this week. Their mascot's named after our mascot.
Figures.
Yeah, there you go. All right, we got 60 seconds left. Thank you so much to everybody here at Zeppo's. It is great to see you. To Jerry Kylo, who gets us on the air. Jared Krengruber does such a good job. Mike Morabito back in the U.S. Bank Network studios. It's a noon airtime on Saturday, 2 o'clock kick, Cougs and Bears.